The Chinese loans and the probe of the House of Representatives continue to generate controversies, with the appearance of Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi and the House of Representatives. Today we discuss the matter. And a group of civil society organizations today raised an alarm over the security situation in the country, and they're worried about what they describe as a stifling of free speech and a threatened human rights environment. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimbale in Lagos. Tonight we're discussing a very serious matter, and that is the matter of loans that Nigeria is taking from China. And that became a very heated conversation yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives. We're going to be dissecting that matter for you. Another matter of concern is what I'm going to be telling you, which happened today at a press conference, the fear of some civil society organization. Well, the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Group has expressed serious concern over what it describes as the deteriorating security situation in the country, as well as a deliberate attempt by the government to silence criticism. They were speaking at a news conference today in Abuja. The convener of the Situation Group, Mr. Clement Nwankwo, also notes that human rights and free speech is constantly being threatened.
In addition to government failures in the economic sphere, is a heightened insecurity in the country. On a daily basis, communities, villages and towns are attacked by bandits and insurgents and terrorists, with the security services unable to respond in any responsible manner. Multiple calls by state governors, the national legislature, civil society, and citizens for the sack of the ineffective leadership of security agencies have been ignored by the President Buhari. Yes. This response is made more saddening by the fact that the leadership of almost all the security agencies in the country remain in office well beyond their term limits. Human rights in the country remain under serious threat, with free speech and free expression constantly threatened. Situation Room calls for the following. The Nigerian government should genuinely seek to implement measures that restores citizens' confidence in its ability to govern. Repeatedly, citizens groups, the National Assembly, state governors have called for attention to be paid to the nature and leadership of our security services, and the President has not done so. We call on the President to respect the Constitution, to ensure that security chiefs who have exceeded their terms of office are allowed to go, in order that the security services can be made much more effective and efficient.
That's perhaps a very serious conversation that we might be having in the coming days. The free speech environment and the human rights issue in the country. But for tonight, it's about loans and loans and loans that the government is taking in China. Is it justified? What happened yesterday, politically speaking, what are the implications? We dissect those issues for you tonight. But first, let's check out some of these political stories on our political roundup. Then we'll come back and dive straight into the matter.
President Muhammadu Buhari today received former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan at State House Abuja. Dr. Jonathan, who is ECOWAS Special Envoy to the Republic of Mali, briefed on the political situation in the West African country as corollary to efforts by West African leaders to restore stability to the country. The governor of Nasarawa State, Mr. Abdullahi Sule, is thanking President Muhammadu Buhari for his interventions in the security of the state. The governor met the president behind closed doors at the State House in Abuja.
I had to express great appreciation to Mr. President, one, for accepting to set up the third military mobile police training college in Nasarawa State.
Supporters of the PDP in the 10 wards in Ondo West local government area of Ondo State have rallied support for the candidate of the party, Itai Odegede. At a meeting held today at the secretariat of the party in Ondo Town, the headquarters of the party, the supporters turned out in large numbers. Some of the leaders of the party expressed their assurances that the PDP candidate will win the election, despite having to contend with the serving governor in the APC and the candidate of his political godfather in ZLP. The president-elect of the Nigerian Bar Association is seeking support of the Nigeria Governors Forum for enforcement of the rule of law and improved enhancement of human rights. The NBA president-elect leads members of his team on a courtesy visit to the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kadi Fayemi, who is also the chairman of the Governors Forum. He seeks better strengthening of institutions in Nigeria as he assures Governor Fayemi of maximum support from the NBA.
Can you provide this honorable committee with satisfied copies of labor plan, training programs carried out, and beneficiaries, and evidence of number of Nigerians working in all aspects of this project vis-a-vis their Chinese counterpart as provided in that agreement document?
The only contract we've awarded so far is $1.6 billion contract for Lagos Ibadan, which is under threat. Can
you speak to the questions I asked you now? You see, I told you from the beginning.
I have a choice.
Excuse me, sir.
I have two choices.
Please.
You gotta let me speak, or I stop.
Excuse me. I said, when you ask question with time, you answer the question directly.
Mr. Chairman, there are over 20,000 workers. Only 560 of them are Chinese. 560, and I wish to submit the document.
Can we have the document?
Because we need to begin to say the truth to Nigerians.
Can we have the document?
This is very political.
Nobody is telling lies.
And I will show all the contracts awarded by the PDP government since you want to bring this up.
Mr. Chairman, sir.
It's important I tell you, sir, that contract was signed as a prelude to a loan, and there is no loan. And we may not get the loan because of you, Mr. Chairman. Because of the committee you've set up against the China loan, South-South, that contract is from Lagos to Calabar, which is the whole of the South-South. Mr. Chairman, we may not get that loan, so there's no contract.
I am talking about the same contract you told me of this particular...
Which of them? The 2016 contract you talked about?
Yes, this one.
Which of them? If you're talking about the South-South, you just asked me. You want to meet the South-South contract?
Virtually all the contracts.
Do you want to meet the South-South contract? If you want to meet, say you want to meet it, let's go to the other one.
Can you listen to me? Follow me. If we continue to serve our geopolitical zone, this country will not be nice. If Zone 8 gets their fair share, and next year...
Have you not approached me on South-South? Have you not approached me on South-South Rail? Have you not approached me on South-South Rail?
I have not.
You have?
I have not.
Mr. Chairman, you have approached me.
It's okay.
That was a part of that heated argument yesterday on the floor on the House of Representatives. At that House hearing on loans and treaties, when the committee chairman, Honorable Osai, and the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, got into that exchange. The committee is investigating a $500 billion loan agreement between Nigeria and China for the federal government's railway project. The minister, who is appearing before the committee for a second time, maintained his position that Nigeria is now very unlikely to get the remaining loans from China due to the investigations being carried out by the House of Reps, which suggests that the different arms of government do not support the loan. Beyond the argument and heated situation are the serious and fundamental questions. How safe is it to get these loans from China? Considering the history of Chinese loans and other countries have gotten loans from China recently, what are the hopes of Nigeria in the hands of China, our benefactor, should we default? So are some of the conversation that we'll be having tonight. I have joining me an economist and a national chairman of ANRP, Mr. Tope Fasua, is in our Abuja studio. And beside him is a former lawmaker and a chieftain of the APC, Honorable Cletus Obon. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. It's going to be a conversation about the future of this country, what the government is doing, how profitable it is, and perhaps if there is any looming danger. So let me begin the conversation with you, Mr. Fasua. You are an economist, and the minister was saying that he's worried that this probe might jeopardize the loan that Nigeria is about to get from China. What's your take on that?
All right, thank you, Sheil. Well, I think, like they say, everything works together for good. For those who are righteous, so let's hope some righteousness comes in here. The point is that the House of Reps committee, they do have a right to look into some of those agreements, so otherwise we would just be, we stand the risk of being railroaded into different things. But also, well, unfortunately, that discussion between them was actually a bit colored by some sort of emotions and personal disagreements, But yeah, the House of Reps, they are right to want to inquire. However, they also have to be cautious to ensure that they don't jeopardize Nigeria's chances. Now, the discussion should have focused on the issue of that sovereignty so that we can actually get to understand exactly what is going on. It is true that for international loans, the best you can get is that sovereign clause that says that, look, we can take this asset, if you don't perform. Now, I think one of the arguments I've heard elsewhere is that, look, that clause needs to be very specific as to the asset that you're entitled to take. And what they've seen in some of the Chinese loans that they've drawn up is an omnibus clause that says that just waive the sovereignty. If we are coming to get our loan, you don't tell us that you're a sovereign country. We can have access to anything we want. So that's the point that people begin to freak out. However, I must say that as things stand from my position as an economist, I'm still a bit biased towards the Chinese loans because we see tangibles on ground. In the year 2010 or thereabouts, I was in the same room, this day dome, with Tony Blair and George W. Bush and Condoleezza Rice. They were here in this country. And somebody asked a question about Chinese loans. And Tony Blair said that, look, what they have realized about the Chinese loans is that when Africans go to China and say they want to build a road, the next day the Chinese man shows up with a digger. And that when they come to them, they will give us a sheaf of papers with fine print. As at that time, and of course, the moment he said that, George Bush snatched the phone, literally snatched the mic from him, and then was giving us a lecture about how China pollutes our environment and all of that. I felt, look, from my perspective, I'm non-aligned. I believe in pragmatism and what's best for our country and our people. So it is true that the Western country had lost a lot of respect for us, and we weren't getting anything from them except they give long rules, including devaluation of currency and all of that. And, they call it structural adjustment, and then this Chinese came. However, it's also important to say that because the Chinese are a little bit closer to us in terms of human development, human capital development, quote and unquote, their own sort of oppression is a little bit more jarring when they want to. If we left our guards down, then we would have things like human, direct abuse of our people. I've seen where Chinese beat our people up and all of that. So we don't want that. So I think that's where it's very important that the House of Reps or whichever legislative body should also do their work.
Let me allow
very critical.
Great. So let me allow Mr. Honorable Cletus Obun to weigh in, and his conversation, his response will lead us into break. Honorable Obun, are you also thinking in the line of what the minister said, and the implications to what he said to the House of Reps, that, look, you have jeopardized the chances of us getting this loan? On that premise, what's your take on what he said?
I will tell you this. Rotimi Amechi is a very passionate person. He's been we were classmates in our master's program way back in '95. When he was speaker, I was in the Cross-River House of Assembly. So I've worked closely with him. And coming from the South, it is understandable. He is very passionate about the kind of politics we play with everything, including human life. Only yesterday, we saw 774,000 jobs to be given to the poor and the needy of our streets. And then Keamu was summoned to that same place, to the National Assembly. And then the next thing we saw the Minister of Niger Delta on the same matter of NDDC, on the people of the Niger Delta people. And then you have again today, it is Rotimi Amechi about rail in the Niger Delta. We are doing the the Ibadan, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, Abuja. And then when you want to do a rail that will pass through the South-South, we get involved with the politics. And the persons doing this are from the South-South. But let me say this, which is very unfortunate. Is it that APC is in government without being in power? Otherwise, how come critical and strategic committees that have to do with the people of Nigeria are being politicized by the PDP legislators, to the point where you will tell your colleague that he's a co-opted member, he cannot guide you? When you descend to the arena in that manner, the bias is simply unattainable, unacceptable, and this type of politics is dirty, is cheap, and is very pedestrian, and completely unalive. It's unpatriotic. And I think Nigerians must rise and condemn this, and this is what Amechi and some of the ministers are standing up against, that there is a level to which you cannot play politics. There is no railway that is labeled APC. There's no railway or road that is labeled PDP. It is about the people. Whether it is a school or a university or a hospital, right, it is about the people.
Honorable.
And I think the legislator has a duty to his people once he enters the chambers like the National Assembly. He must have to get himself know that he's not a Nigerian fighting for Nigerians and not a PDP man or APC man fighting for APC or for this. So it isn't a coincidence
just a moment,
that it is PDP chairmen of committees that are giving this problem to projects that are seen on the road.
All right. We are due for our break, but when we come back, beyond the political exchange that we saw yesterday, are the underlying factors of what we have saying about Chinese loans, the benefit for Nigeria, the viability of Nigeria paying back these loans. We're going to discuss it and what this means for the average Nigerian like me and that man on the street. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We'll be right back.
Can you provide this honorable committee with satisfied copies of labor plan, training programs carried out, and beneficiaries, and evidence of number of Nigerians working in all aspects of this project vis-a-vis their Chinese counterpart as provided in that agreement document?
The only contract we've awarded so far is $1.6 billion contract for Lagos Ibadan, which is under threat. Can
you speak to the questions I asked you now? You see, I told you from the beginning.
I have a choice.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
I have two choices.
Please.
You gotta let me speak, or I stop.
Excuse me. I said when you ask question with time, you answer the question directly.
Mr. Chairman, there are over 20,000 workers. Only 560 of them are Chinese. 560, and I wish to submit the document.
Can we have the document?
Because we need to begin to say the truth to Nigerians.
Can we have the document?
This is very political.
Nobody is telling lies.
And I will show all the contracts awarded by the PDP government since you want to bring this up.
Mr. Chairman, sir.
It's important I tell you, sir, that contract was signed as a prelude to a loan, and there is no loan. And we may not get the loan because of you, Mr. Chairman. Because of the committee you've set up against the China loan, South-South, that contract is from Lagos to Calabar, which is the whole of the South-South. Mr. Chairman, we may not get that loan, so there's no contract.
I am talking about the same contract you told me of this particular...
Which of them? The 2016 contract you talked about?
Yes, this one.
Which of them? If you're talking about the South-South, you just asked me. You want to meet the South-South contract?
Virtually all the contracts.
Do you want to meet the South-South contract? If you want to meet, say you want to meet it, let's go to the other one.
Can you listen to me? Follow me. If we continue to serve our geopolitical zone, this country will not be nice. If Zone 8 gets their fair share, and next year...
Have you not approached me on South-South? Have you not approached me on South-South Rail? Have you not approached me on South-South Rail?
I have not.
You have?
I have not.
Mr. Chairman, you have approached me.
It's okay.
Thank you so much. Let's get back into the conversation. With what we saw yesterday, and that exchange brings to the fore some very fundamental issues beyond the rhetorics and the politics that you see. I'm more concerned as the anchor of this program tonight and the benefit of you there watching me, either with your small TV set or your large screen TV set, or when you're watching on your mobile, about what this means for you, the food on your table, and the future of your children and my children, whether or not the government is doing the right thing. And that's why we have the panel tonight to dissect this issue so that we can make our own decision as citizens. So I have Mr. Tokwe Fasua and Honorable Cletus Obon. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight on the program. Perhaps before I go back to Mr. Fasua, so that we can be fair in our timing, let me ask you, there are fears, Honorable Obon, about, I'm very sure that you have heard economists debate days, about what they have termed the economic neocolonialism by the Chinese agenda. And if you look at the situation in Zambia, they almost take over of the Chinese broadcasting state broadcaster, and also the airport there. Also, what we saw in Sri Lanka, what we saw in Papua, what we saw in the Maldives, what we saw in Egypt, and the manner in which China gives out this loan. At the end of the day, when there is a default, what happens at the takeover of some of these assets? Is Nigeria in danger?
Let me say this to you. When this type of economic warfare is going on at the propaganda level, at the international level, especially between the West and the Chinese, what should come to your mind readily within the context of political economy is that the world powers are at their game, and today again the guinea pigs of international politics are the black race, especially the African continent. The countries you have named, of all the countries you have named, over 90% of them on the African continent. Now, the loan from China, if you look at it, the clause that is the bane and the quarrel that everybody is having today is the issue of sovereignty. I do not know. The economic team that was formed by this government is made up of former professors of economics, former CBN governor, for example. We have qualified and qualitative men in that economic team. I do not imagine that Nigerians can so distrust their own men that, in fact, they go to a ridiculous extent of saying that those clauses are even written in Chinese. Who will sign such a document? I do not want to believe that the sovereignty of Nigeria is under any threat. On the contrary, I ask you, if you ask a 25-year-old child today in Nigeria, he does not know what a train looks like, except he watches it on the film or the international TV sets. You can never get it in Nigeria. And yet, people who are living here in their 40s saw railways in Nigeria. And what are the economic benefits and the multiplier effect of a railway running from Lagos to Calabar? Number one, in the construction site, you are having people who are artisans, who are welders, people who are barbers, barbing the workers on the... These are not the workers, the 20,000 that Transport Minister is talking about. These are not part of the 20,000. The 19,500 Nigerians working there are on salary. But the people who are selling groundnuts, selling pure water to them, cooking roadside food for them are different. The barbers are different. The drivers, the Okada men are different. The multiplier effect is simply monumental in construction. At the end of it, again, you are going to save the roads. You are going to save the roads from the heavy traffic of tanker drivers, of the heavy traffic of carrying food on the road, yam from Zakibiam to Port Harcourt, timber from Akampa to Port Harcourt or to Enugu. All that is going to be taken off. I tell you this, that no time is the Chinese loan better for Nigeria than now. All that
so, Honorable Obun, let me, Honorable Obun, just a moment. Just a moment, Honorable Obun. Let me go to Mr. Tokwe Fasuwa. In our 2020 budget, debt servicing alone will take over 2 trillion naira, Mr. Fasuwa. And as an economist, you know what that means. The fear that we could be trapped to our international or our creditor, should we default? Should we, do we have the capacity to service the debt, considering the impact of COVID-19 on economies around the world, including that of Nigeria?
Well, Sheon, the point is that we are in dire straits already. It's even beyond whether they are Chinese or any which loan. I must also let you know from the perspective of our economists that at a time like this, when we have such a debilitating economic issue, which is both a health factor, I mean, it came as an health issue, but it's bigger as an economic issue. We have no choice but to borrow. I've never been a fan of borrowing, but when you look at the terrain and you see that, look, I mean, your mainstay is dwindling and there's nothing you can do, even if you are serious-minded in the next 20 years, for you to reverse the scenario such that you'd have enough revenue to go by and even to have surplus budget, then you have to borrow. So now I believe, yes, Nigeria needs to borrow. However, we need to be careful about the borrowing. I saw that 96% of our revenue for this year will be used to service the loan. So already it is not sustainable. However, this is the time, I must say, almost like a World War period, for countries to actually get into financial trouble and pick up the bills later. So that's what it is. So I think that it's beyond whether it's Chinese, even the World Bank and IMF, the loans we're approaching them for now, of course, the conditionalities are there. I saw yesterday that they're asking us to devalue our currency and all of that. Now, the problem is that they are still stuck at that level of commanding economies to go in a certain direction. If we would devalue our currency, I think it should be well thought out and recommended by our own economists not to be pushed in that direction. Because if you look at where we're coming from 1 naira equals to $2 way back, and all of a sudden we're at 475. And perhaps I heard Bloomberg, or was it, saying that that Nigeria would actually, was it Goldman Sachs, that would actually have 550 in another 18 months, 550 naira to the dollar. So we don't want to hear such things. It makes us feel very vulnerable. But like Honorable Clement has said, also in the middle of all of this, you see, we're talking about West versus East. What about us? At what point are we going to do things for ourselves? What I haven't seen are those very fundamental, well thought out ideas that could actually get us out of this toddler position to begin to stand on our own.
Mr. Fasua,
all those professors that we have, we still are not getting those ideas.
Mr. Fasua, let me get your closing thought in 30 seconds. And it's about the issue of local content. Are you satisfied with the explanation of the minister yesterday about the involvement of the Chinese in some of these projects, the number of boots on the ground in Nigeria by these Chinese? Are you satisfied? The issue of local content in 30 seconds. And I will also go to Honorable Cletus.
I must say very quickly regarding local content that, look, like I said earlier on, we're rather close to the Chinese in terms of human capital development. In Ghana, there was a time that they actually got a few people from their prisons to come and do some contracts in Ghana to be working as laborers. They were paying them their salaries in China. And then they say, work for 5 years and then you're a free man and all of that. So we're going to have all sorts of things. They're bringing peasants to come and work here. All of that is going on. I'm not quite satisfied with what the minister has said, but I think that the House should have spent more time actually trying to get to the root of, okay, local content, is it being satisfied? But of course, the minister said over 20,000 Nigerians are being employed in those projects. That's against 600 Chinese people. I think it's something that we need to lay emphasis on.
All right. So let me, I'll take that as your closing thought, Mr. Fasua. Let me go to Mr. Obon so that we can close the program on that note. And it's also about how the government under President Buhari is approaching this issue and the confidence in the people. On your closing moment, if you can react to what Mr. Fasua said in 30 seconds.
Well, I will say that this is the first time since 1960 up to 2015 that we are seeing a commensurate infrastructure compared to the loans. How much loan and what is the work done? This is the first time under 5 years that we are having the quantum outside the era of Gowon in the 60s when we had the oil boom between 1970 in the 70s, in the early 70s up to 1974-75. Before that time and after that time, no government in our history, check the statistics, no government in our history has ever gotten the quantum of project and infrastructure against the loans collected. Therefore, the Chinese share the same economic background with the African continent, especially Nigeria. How did we get into the concept of medium powers? Like he was asking, that when do we stand on our own and begin to control our own destiny in terms of our economies, in terms of our military, in terms of our health situation? How do we get into that system? It is for us as a country to get back and dig in. Otherwise,
so we need to close on that note, Honorable Obon, because we are out of time. I must sincerely thank both of you, Honorable Obon and Mr. Tokpe Fasua, for this engagement tonight and the thoughts that you have shared. I'm indeed very grateful. Thank you so much. But that's how we leave it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. Bye-bye.